The rain came down in sheets. Iris Calloway stood before the house that held too many memories, her hand trembling around the iron gate. Water streamed down her face, though she couldn't tell anymore where rain ended and tears began. The Victorian cottage sagged under the weight of 5 years' neglect, peeling paint-broken shutters, a garden choked with weeds. Once there had been roses here. Roses her grandmother had tended every morning with soil-stained hands and a smile that made the world feel safe. Now there was only ruin. She should leave. She should get back in her car drive to her clean-ordered apartment and pretend this place didn't exist. But her feet wouldn't move. They never did when she came here. The gate creaked as she pushed it open. Thunder rolled across Portland's gray sky. The house loomed before her each window, dark and accusing. She had promised herself she would restore it, turn it into something meaningful, a community space maybe, a place where broken things could be made whole again. The irony wasn't lost on her. 5 years ago, she had stood in a different place. A church decorated in cream and gold, 200 guests waiting her dress a cascade of silk and lace. She could still feel the weight of the bouquet in her hands, smell the lilies that made her eyes water. Could still hear her father's voice outside the bridal suite, confused, asking what was wrong. Could still see Jonathan's face on her phone screen, a photo someone had sent her 30 minutes before she was supposed to walk down the aisle. Him and Sienna. Her best friend since college, tangled together in sheets that weren't Iris's. The message had been simple. Thought you should know before you make a mistake. She had made the mistake 3 years earlier. She just hadn't known it yet. Iris closed her eyes. Rain drummed against her skull. When she opened them again, the house blurred at the edges, and for a moment she saw her grandmother there on the porch. Gray hair and a bun flower on her apron, that impossible smile. Iris, darling, come in from the rain. But when she blinked, there was only emptiness. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. She ignored it. It buzzed again and again. With a sigh that came from somewhere deep in her chest, she pulled it out. The screen lit up with her sister's face, Cleo grinning in front of a sunset forever. Optimistic, forever believing the world was better than it was. I know you're standing in front of that house, Cleo's text read. Then another, and I know you're drowning in your head right now. And finally, turn around. Iris turned. Cleo stood at the gate, somehow managing to look radiant, even drenched to the bone. She held a yellow umbrella that did absolutely nothing against the downpour and a manila envelope that she kept tucked against her chest like a shield. You're impossible to track, Cleo said, walking up the cracked pathway. I've been calling for 20 minutes. I had my phone on silent. You always have your phone on silent. Cleo stopped in front of her, water streaming down her face, her dark eyes serious despite the smile. How long have you been standing here? Not long. Liar. Iris looked away. What do you want Cleo to do to save you from yourself? Her sister held out the envelope. And to make you keep a promise. Iris stared at it like it might bite. What promise? 5 years ago, after you called off the wedding, I sat with you in your apartment for 3 days. You cried so hard I thought you'd break. And on the third day, you looked at me and said, give me 5 years. If I'm still like this in 5 years, you have permission to do whatever it takes to pull me back. I don't remember that. You were drunk on cheap wine and heartbreak. But you meant it. Cleo pushed the envelope closer. It's been 5 years, Iris. To the day. Thunder cracked overhead. Iris took the envelope with numb fingers and opened it. Inside, a single piece of paper. An address she didn't recognize. A date this Saturday. A time 7 p.m. And at the bottom, in Cleo's looping handwriting, blind date, no excuses. Iris's stomach dropped. No. Yes. Cleo, you owe me this. I owe you nothing that involves parading my dysfunction in front of a stranger. Cleo's expression softened. She reached out and took Iris's hand, squeezing hard enough to hurt. Grandma used to say something. Do you remember she'd say it every time you were scared of something? Iris did remember. The words rose up from some buried place, her grandmother's voice clear as daylight. If you don't open the door, you'll never know what's waiting on the other side. That's not fair, Iris whispered. Life isn't fair. But Grandma also said that after 5 years of locking every door, you're not living. You're just existing in a prettier cage. Cleo squeezed her hand again. I'm not asking you to fall in love. I'm asking you to have dinner with someone. One dinner, 2 hours of your life. If it's terrible, you can leave and I'll never bring it up again. And if I say no, then I'll keep showing up every day until you're so annoyed you agree just to make me go away. Despite everything, Iris almost smiled. Almost. She looked down at the paper again. The ink was already bleeding in the rain, the address becoming harder to read. Part of her wanted to let it dissolve completely, let the rain make the decision for her. But another part, a part she'd tried to bury for 5 years, whispered something dangerous. What if one dinner, Iris heard herself say. Cleo's face lit up like sunrise. One dinner. And you never mention this again if it's a disaster. Deal. They stood there for a moment, rain falling around them, the house silent behind them. Then Cleo pulled her into a hug so tight Iris couldn't breathe. Thank you, Cleo whispered. Thank you for trying. When they pulled apart, Iris saw tears mixing with rain on her sister's face. Are you crying? Shut up. I'm emotional. I'm getting married in 4 months and my sister's finally coming back to life. I'm allowed to cry out bash. Something twisted in Iris's chest. 4 months. She'd been so wrapped up in her own misery she'd barely thought about Cleo's wedding, about what it must be like for her sister to plan a future while watching Iris drown in the past. I'm sorry, Iris said quietly. For what? For making you worry, for being human. Cleo smiled through tears. You're allowed to be human, Iris. You're allowed to have been broken. You're just not allowed to stay broken forever. They walked back to their cars together, Cleo chattering about wedding plans and color schemes, Iris only half listening. But as she drove away, watching the house disappear in her rear-view mirror, she couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted. The paper with the address sat on her passenger seat, still damp, still bleeding. One dinner. How bad could it be? Gabriel Cross had seen worse. He'd seen bones shattered beyond recognition. Children brought in after accidents that should have killed them. Families torn apart by nothing more than bad timing and worse luck. He'd seen the inside of trauma rooms at 3 a.m., the fluorescent lights too bright, the silence too heavy. He'd stitched together what should have stayed broken and watched miracles happen with his own hands. But somehow, sitting across from his best friend in a coffee shop on a Wednesday afternoon, he'd never felt more trapped. It's one dinner, Theo said, stirring his coffee with the kind of careful precision that meant he'd already made up his mind. 2 hours, maybe 3 if the conversation is good. No. Hey, Gabriel. I said no. Theo Vaughn had known Gabriel for 15 years. They'd met in medical school, survived residency together, stood beside each other at Gabriel's wedding. And 3 years ago, Theo had been there when Gabriel came home to an empty house and a phone call that changed everything. But knowing someone for 15 years apparently gave them the mistaken belief they could fix you. You can't hide forever, Theo said gently. I'm not hiding, I'm working. You're working yourself into an early grave. Theo leaned forward, his dark eyes serious. When's the last time you did something that wasn't surgery or sleep? Gabriel didn't answer. He looked out the window instead, watching rain trace patterns down the glass. Portland was always raining. He'd grown up here, left for medical school in California, and come back because Audrey had loved the city, loved the green and the gray and the endless ski. She'd loved a lot of things he'd taken for granted. I know what you're thinking, Theo said quietly. You're not a mind reader. No, but I am your friend, and I know that look. Theo reached across the table and tapped Gabriel's wrist. You're thinking about her, about what she would want, and Gabriel, she would want you to live. The words hit like a scalpel, clean, precise, devastating. Gabriel pulled his hand back. You don't know what she would want. I knew Audrey for 5 years. She was my friend too, and I know she wouldn't want this. You working 80-hour weeks, coming home to an empty apartment, acting like you died with her. I didn't. Didn't you? Theo's voice was soft but unyielding. When's the last time you laughed, really laughed? When's the last time you looked forward to something? Gabriel's jaw tightened. This isn't fair. No, what's not fair is watching you waste the life she died trying to protect. The silence that followed was heavy enough to suffocate. Finally, Gabriel spoke. What's her name? Theo blinked. What, the woman? What's her name? Does it matter? If you're going to ambush me into this, I at least deserve to know who I'm meeting. Theo's expression shifted just slightly, but enough that Gabriel noticed. His friend was hiding something. Her name is Iris, Theo said carefully. Iris what? Does it matter, Theo? Calloway. Her name is Iris Calloway. Theo picked up his coffee, avoiding Gabriel's eyes. She's an architect, smart, kind. She's been through some things. I think you'd like her. Something in the way Theo said it made Gabriel pause. How do you know her? I just do. That's not an answer. It's the only answer you're getting right now. Theo set his cup down and met Gabriel's gaze. Trust me. One dinner. If it's awful, I'll never bring it up again. But Gabriel, you can't keep living in the past. At some point, you have to take a step forward, even if it's terrifying. Gabriel wanted to say no, wanted to walk out of this coffee shop and back into the safety of his hospital, his surgeries, his controlled environment where he could fix things, where death and loss happened to other people's loved ones, not his. But there was something in Theo's face, a desperation that looked a lot like grief. Why does this matter so much to you? Gabriel asked quietly. Theo was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was raw. Because I've lost too many people who were still alive, and I'm not losing you too. Gabriel felt something crack in his chest, not break, just crack, enough to let a little light in. One dinner, he heard himself say. Theo's expression transformed. Really, one, if it's a disaster, we never speak of this again. Deal. They shook on it, Theo's grip almost painful in its relief. As Gabriel left the coffee shop, rain soaking through his jacket immediately, he tried to remember the last time he'd felt anything other than numb. He couldn't. Maybe that was the problem. Saturday came too quickly. Iris stood in front of her closet, staring at clothes that suddenly felt like costumes. Too formal, too casual, too much like she was trying. She'd been standing there for 20 minutes and still hadn't chosen anything. Her phone buzzed. Cleo, of course. How's the panic attack going? Iris texted back, I'm fine. Liar, what are you wearing? Haven't decided. The blue dress, the one with the sleeves, it makes you look human. Despite herself, Iris smiled. She pulled out the dress, soft navy simple lines, nothing dramatic. It was the kind of dress that said, I'm here, but I'd rather not be noticed. Perfect. She was halfway through applying minimal makeup when her phone rang. Cleo's face filled the screen. Don't answer, Iris told her reflection. She answered. I knew you'd pick up, Cleo said, sounding smug. Listen, I know you're terrified. I know every part of you wants to bail. But Iris, you're going to be okay. It's just dinner. Just dinner, Iris repeated, not believing it. And if he's awful, text me the eggplant emoji and I'll call with a fake emergency. The eggplant emoji, I thought it was funny. You're ridiculous. I'm supportive. There's a difference. Cleo's voice softened. Hey, you've got this. And Iris, I'm proud of you. The words landed somewhere tender. Don't make me cry. I just did my makeup. Then don't cry, just go. Be yourself, let someone see you again. They hung up. Iris stared at her reflection, a woman she barely recognized anymore. When had she become someone who was afraid of dinner? 5 years ago, she realized. The night she'd called off her wedding and decided the world was safer at a distance. She grabbed her coat and left before she could change her mind. The painted lady was everything Iris expected and dreaded. Intimate lighting, soft music, couples leaning close over candlelit tables. The kind of place designed for romance, for beginnings, for people who still believed in happy endings. She wanted to leave immediately, but she'd promised Cleo. One dinner. The hostess greeted her with a warm smile. Do you have a reservation? I'm meeting someone under... She realized she didn't know what name the reservation was under. Cleo hadn't told her. I'm not sure, actually. It's a blind date. The hostess's smile widened. Oh, how lovely. What's your name? Iris Calloway. Perfect. Your table is ready. Follow me. Iris followed her through the restaurant past tables of people who looked happy, who looked like they belonged here. The hostess led her to a table near the back, tucked into a corner with a view of the rain-streaked windows. Your date should be here shortly. Can I get you started with something to drink? Water's fine. Of course. She left and Iris was alone with her anxiety and the candle flickering between the empty chairs. She checked her phone, 7 p.m. exactly. She was never late. It was one of the few things she could still control. 5 minutes passed, then 10. Maybe he wouldn't show. Maybe this was all some cosmic joke and she could leave and tell Cleo she tried. Then she saw him. He stood at the hostess stand, tall and broad-shouldered, rain glistening in dark hair. He wore a jacket over a simple button-down, and even from across the room, Iris could see the tension in his posture. The way he held himself like he was preparing for surgery, not dinner. The hostess pointed toward her table. The man looked over and their eyes met. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then he walked toward her, and Iris felt her heart do something it hadn't done in 5 years. It woke up. Gabriel had prepared himself for awkward, for uncomfortable, for the kind of forced pleasantries that made him want to escape through the nearest window. He had not prepared for this. The woman sitting at the table looked up as he approached, and something in his chest tightened. She had dark hair pulled back, simply minimal, makeup eyes that held a weariness he recognized. She wore a navy dress that somehow made her look both present and ready to disappear. She looked like someone who had survived something. "Iris," he asked, his voice rougher than intended. She nodded. "Gabriel." "Yes." They shook hands. Her grip was firm, brief, professional, like this was a business meeting and not whatever Theo had orchestrated. He sat down, and for a moment neither of them spoke. Then they both tried to speak at once. "So, I should." They stopped, almost smiled, almost. "You first," Gabriel said. Iris took a breath. "I should probably be honest. I didn't want to come tonight." The admission surprised him. "Neither did I." Her eyebrows rose. "Really?" "My friend set this up. He's convinced I've become a hermit." "My sister set this up. She's convinced I've forgotten how to be human." They looked at each other, and this time they did smile, just a little. "So we're both here against our will," Iris said. "Apparently. That's actually comforting. Misery loves company." Something like that. The server appeared, breaking the moment. They ordered. Iris chose pasta, Gabriel the salmon, and then they were alone again with the silence and the candle and the rain drumming against the windows. "So," Gabriel said, trying to remember how people did this. "Theo said you're an architect." "I am. Small projects mostly, renovations, spaces that need reimagining." She paused. "What do you do?" "I'm a surgeon, orthopedic. I work mainly with children." Something shifted in her expression. "That must be difficult." "It is, but it's also the most rewarding thing I've ever done." He meant it. Surgery was the one place he still felt like himself, the one place where he could fix things. "Do you have children?" she asked, then immediately winced. "Sorry, that's too personal for a first for this." "It's okay. No, I don't." The words came easier than expected. "You, no." Silence again. But this time it felt less hostile, more like two people trying to figure out if they wanted to keep trying. "Can I ask you something?" Iris said suddenly. "Sure." "Why did you agree to come?" "Really? Yeah." Gabriel considered the question. He could lie, give some pleasant answer about being open to new experiences, but something about her made him want to be honest. "Because my friend was desperate enough to beg, and because I realized I can't remember the last time I did something just for myself, even if I didn't want to." She nodded slowly. "My sister used a similar tactic, emotional blackmail wrapped in love. It's effective. It's annoying. That too." They smiled at each other again, and this time it reached their eyes. The food arrived. They ate in a silence that was surprisingly comfortable, occasionally commenting on the meal at the restaurant, the weather, surface-level things, safe things. But Gabriel found himself watching her. The way she cut her pasta with careful precision, the way she looked out of the window sometimes like she was somewhere else entirely, the way she seemed both present and absent at the same time. He recognized it because he did the same thing. "Can I ask you something now?" he said. She looked up. "Fair's fair." "Your sister. You said she thinks you've forgotten how to be human." "What did she mean?" Iris set down her fork. For a moment, Gabriel thought he'd pushed too far, but then she spoke, her voice quiet. "5 years ago, I was supposed to get married. 2 weeks before the wedding, I found out my fiancé had been cheating on me for 3 years with my best friend. She said it matter-of-factly, like reciting a shopping list. I called it off. And I guess I called off everything else too. The words hung in the air between them. I'm sorry, Gabriel said and meant it. Don't be, it was a long time ago. I'm fine now. But she wasn't. He could hear it in her voice, could see it in the way she wouldn't quite meet his eyes. My turn for honesty, he heard himself say. 3 years ago, my wife died in a car accident. We'd had a fight that morning about moving to Boston for my career. She left angry. She never came home. Iris's expression transformed. Gabriel, I don't tell people that. I don't know why I'm telling you. Maybe because we're strangers. Sometimes that makes it easier. Maybe. They looked at each other across the candle, two people carrying weight they couldn't put down. We're a mess, aren't we? Iris said softly. Completely. This is the worst first date ever. Absolutely terrible. And then, despite everything, they laughed. It started small, just a chuckle, but it grew until they were both shaking with tears in their eyes. The kind of laughter that comes from releasing something you've held too long. The other diners looked over, but neither of them cared. When they finally stopped, breathless and exhausted, Iris wiped her eyes. I can't remember the last time I laughed like that, she admitted. Me either. The server came by asking about dessert. They both declined. But when the check came, neither of them reached for their coats. Should we? Iris started. Maybe just a few more minutes, Gabriel finished. So they stayed, talking about easier things. Portland, rain, work, the way the city looked at night. They discovered they'd both grown up here, had probably passed each other 100 times without knowing. She told him about the house she was trying to restore. He told her about a patient, a little girl named Ruby, who refused to speak. And slowly the weight lifted. Just a little. Just enough. At 8:45, the restaurant began to empty. They finally stood gathering coats and phones and the fragments of armor they'd left behind. Outside, the rain had softened to a mist. They stood under the restaurant's awning, neither quite ready to leave. Thank you, Iris said suddenly. For what? For being honest, for not pretending this was something it wasn't. Thank you for laughing at how terrible we both are at this. She smiled. A real smile this time, not one practiced or polite. They exchanged numbers just in case they said. As friends, they said. Nothing more. Gabriel walked her to her car and they said goodnight with a handshake that lasted a moment too long. As he drove home through the rain, he realized something strange. He didn't feel numb anymore, and he didn't know if that was terrifying or hopeful. Maybe both. Iris didn't go home. She drove to the house instead, her grandmother's house. The one she couldn't fix, couldn't let go, couldn't figure out how to make into something new. She sat in her car in front of it, engine running, heat-blasting rain, fogging the windows. Her phone buzzed with texts from Cleo demanding details, but she ignored them. Instead, she thought about Gabriel Cross, about the way he'd looked at her with eyes that understood, about the way they'd laughed together over their shared disaster, about the way he'd said, me either, when she'd admitted she couldn't remember the last time she'd felt light. She thought about his wife, about the accident, about how he carried guilt the way she carried mistrust. Two broken people sitting across a table pretending to be whole. Her phone rang, not Cleo this time. An unknown number, she answered. Hello. Iris, it's Gabriel. I hope it's okay that I'm calling. I know It's okay. He was quiet for a moment. I'm sitting in my car outside my apartment. I haven't gone inside yet. I'm sitting in my car outside a house I'm supposed to be renovating. Haven't moved in 20 minutes. We're both very good at sitting in cars. It's a skill. Another pause. Then Gabriel said, I just wanted to say tonight wasn't what I expected. In a bad way, in a strange way, I expected awful. I expected uncomfortable. I didn't expect, he trailed off. Real, Iris offered. Yeah, real. She leaned her head back against the seat, watching rain trace patterns on her windshield. Gabriel. Yes. Thank you for calling. Thank you for answering. They said goodnight again, but as Iris finally drove home, she realized something had changed, not dramatically, not like a revelation or a cure, but somewhere in the past 3 hours, a door she'd kept locked had opened, just a crack, just enough to let a little light through. And when she finally crawled into bed that night, her cat curled against her side, she didn't dream about the wedding she'd canceled. She dreamed about rain and candlelight and someone who understood what it meant to carry ghosts. It wasn't much, but it was something. And for the first time in 5 years, something felt like enough. 3 days passed before Iris saw him again. 3 days of texts that were careful and light, morning greetings that felt safer than phone calls, questions about work that never went too deep, the kind of conversation two people have when they were both testing the water, neither willing to dive in. Iris told herself this was fine. They were just two people who had had dinner once, who'd laughed together over shared misery. Nothing more. She told herself this even as she checked her phone every 20 minutes. On Wednesday afternoon, her mother called. The call Iris had been dreading. "Your grandfather fell," her mother said, voice tight. "He's at Oregon Health, hip fracture. They're taking him into surgery in an hour." Iris's hands went numb. "I'm on my way." She grabbed her keys and ran. The hospital smelled like disinfectant and fear. Iris found her mother in the surgical waiting room, sitting with her head in her hands. Her father stood by the window, shoulders rigid. They both looked older than they had a week ago. "How is he?" Iris asked, sitting beside her mother. "Stable. They say the surgery is routine, but he's 86, Iris. Nothing is routine at 86. Her mother's voice cracked. "He was just trying to fix the back step. I told him to hire someone. I told him, 'Mom, it's not your fault.'" Her father turned from the window. "The surgeon said it'll be a few hours. Dr. Cross, I think his name was. Young guy. Seemed competent." Iris's heart stopped. "Dr. Cross." "That's what the nurse said. Why?" She couldn't speak, couldn't process the coincidence that felt too sharp to be random. Portland was a big city, hundreds of orthopedic surgeons. What were the odds, Iris? Her mother looked at her. "Do you know him? We met recently." "How? It's not important. I'm sure he's very good at his job." Her mother's eyes narrowed in that way only mothers could manage. The way that said, "I know you're hiding something and we'll discuss it later." But then a nurse appeared. "Family of Robert Calloway." They all stood. "The surgery went well. Dr. Cross will be out shortly to explain the details. Mr. Calloway is in recovery now, but he'll be groggy for a while." Relief flooded through Iris so fast she had to sit back down. 20 minutes later, Gabriel walked into the waiting room. He wore scrubs and a surgical cap pushed back on his head. There were tired lines around his eyes, but when he saw her, something flickered across his face. Surprise, then something softer. "You're here," he said. "He's my grandfather." Gabriel's expression shifted to professional concern. "I'm sorry, I didn't make the connection with the last name." He turned to her parents. "Mr. and Mrs. Calloway, I'm Dr. Cross. Your father did very well in surgery. The fracture was significant, but we were able to repair it with a pin and plate. He'll need physical therapy, but with proper care, he should make a full recovery." Iris's father shook his hand. "Thank you, doctor. When can we see him?" "Another hour or so. Once he's more alert, the nurse will come get you." Her parents asked more questions. Recovery, time, pain management, complications to watch for. Gabriel answered each one with patience and clarity. Iris watched him work, saw the way he made her parents feel, feel safe. This was who he was when he wasn't sitting in a restaurant trying to remember how to be human. This was where he lived. When her parents finally went to get coffee, Gabriel turned to her. "Your grandfather is going to be okay," he said quietly. "Thank you." They stood there in the waiting room, other families moving around them, the television playing muted news in the corner. "This is strange," Iris said finally. "Very. You're sure it's not a sign the universe hates us? I'm beginning to think the universe has a twisted sense of humor." She almost smiled. "Almost." Gabriel glanced at the clock. "I have another surgery in 30 minutes, but Iris, if you need anything, call me, not as a doctor, as whatever we are." Friends. The word felt too small, but neither of them had a better one. "Friends," Gabriel agreed. He left, and Iris sat back down, her phone heavy in her hand. She texted Cleo, "Guess who's operating on Grandpa?" The response was immediate, "No way." "Yes way." "That's either fate or a really elaborate setup. I'm going with fate." Iris didn't respond. She didn't know what to believe anymore. Her grandfather woke up grumpy and demanding jello. I don't need to be in this damn hospital, he grumbled, though his words were slurred from anesthesia. I've survived worse than a broken hip. You've survived stubbornness, Iris's mother said, but she was smiling through tears. Iris stayed until evening until her grandfather fell asleep mid-complaint and the nurses said visiting hours were over. As she walked to the parking garage, her phone buzzed. Gabriel, how is he? Iris awake and already planning his escape. Gabriel, good sign. The grumpy ones recover faster, Iris. Is that medical fact or personal observation? Gabriel, both. She smiled at her phone like a teenager, then caught herself and stopped. At her car, she hesitated, then typed, thank you for taking care of him. Gabriel, it's my job. Iris, still, thank you. A pause, then, are you hungry? Her heart jumped. What? Gabriel, it's 8 p.m. You've been at the hospital for 7 hours. I'm guessing you haven't eaten. There's a diner near the hospital. Nothing fancy, but the coffee is decent and they don't ask questions. Iris knew she should say no, should go home, should put distance between them before whatever this was became something she couldn't walk away from. She typed, what's it called? The Nighthawk Diner was exactly what Gabriel had promised. Worn booths, checkered floors, a waitress who looked like she'd seen everything and judged nothing. At 9 p.m. on a Wednesday, it was mostly empty, except for a few night shift workers nursing coffee. Gabriel was already in a booth by the window when Iris arrived. He'd changed out of scrubs into jeans and a sweater. His hair was damp like he'd showered quickly. He looked tired and real, and nothing like the careful stranger from Saturday. You came, he said as she slid into the booth across from him. You offered food. I'm weak. Noted for future reference. The waitress appeared. They ordered. Iris got a grilled cheese and tomato soup because it was that kind of night. Gabriel ordered the same. Copycat, Iris said. It sounded good. When the waitress left, they fell into silence. But it wasn't uncomfortable. It was the silence of two people who'd already seen each other's broken pieces and decided not to run. How many surgeries did you do today? Iris asked finally. 3. Your grandfather's was the last. Do you always work this late? Usually later. This is early for me. She studied him. Thea was right. You are a hermit. Gabriel's lips twitched. He told you that. He implied it, in that friend way where they're concerned but trying not to be obvious. He's not subtle. Neither is Cleo. They'd probably get along. The food arrived. They ate in comfortable quiet, occasionally commenting on the soup or the diner's decor or the rain that had started again outside. Easy things, surface things. But Iris kept thinking about what her father had said, how competent Gabriel had seemed, how he'd made her parents feel safe in the worst moment. Why children? She asked suddenly. Gabriel looked up from his soup. What? You said you work mainly with children. Why? He was quiet for a long moment. Then he set down his spoon. Because they heal faster. Because they still believe things can be fixed. Because when you tell a kid they're going to be okay, they believe you. He paused. And because I couldn't save my own child, so I save everyone else's. The words were so raw, Iris felt them in her chest. Gabriel, Audrey was pregnant, 3 months. We hadn't told anyone yet. His voice was flat, controlled. She died, the baby died, and I wasn't there for either of them. Iris reached across the table without thinking, took his hand, held on. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry. He looked at their joined hands like he didn't quite know what to do with them. But he didn't pull away. I don't talk about this, he said. I know. I don't know why I'm telling you. Maybe because I asked. Maybe because some things need to be said out loud. Gabriel's fingers tightened around hers. Why architecture? Why spaces? She almost laughed at the deflection, but she understood. Sometimes you could only be vulnerable for so long before you needed to turn the mirror around. Because spaces hold memories, good ones and bad ones. And I wanted to learn how to take the bad ones and make them good again. She looked out the window at the rain. My grandmother's house, the one I told you about. I've been trying to restore it for 2 years. I have the plans, I have the permits, but every time I go there, I can't do it. I just stand there and remember her. and I don't know how to move forward without leaving her behind. What if moving forward doesn't mean leaving her behind? Iris looked back at him. What do you mean? What if the house doesn't need to become something different? What if it needs to become something that honors her, that keeps her there while letting new life in? The words settled over her like a blanket. That's actually profound. I have my moments. They smiled at each other, held hands across a diner table while rain drummed on the roof and the waitress refilled their coffee without comment. We're doing this again, Iris said softly. What? Being more honest than we should be. Telling each other things we don't tell anyone else. Gabriel nodded slowly. Is that bad? I don't know. It feels dangerous. Everything feels dangerous when you have been safe for too long. She couldn't argue with that. They stayed until the diner started closing. When they finally left, Gabriel walked her to her car, both of them quiet under the rain. Thank you, Iris said, for dinner, for listening, for being here. Yeah, he smiled, a real smile that reached his eyes. Thank you for the same. They said goodnight, but as Iris drove home, she realized she was smiling, and that was dangerous indeed. The texts became daily, nothing deep, just check-ins. Gabriel asking about her grandfather's recovery, Iris asking about his surgeries. Little windows into each other's lives that felt both ordinary and essential. 2 weeks after the hospital, Gabriel texted, random question, do you know anything about creating safe spaces for kids? Iris, that's literally my specialty. Why Mutti? Gabriel, I have a patient, 8 years old. She won't talk to anyone except me. Trauma from abuse. She's in foster care now, but she's terrified all the time. I thought maybe if her room felt safer, it might help. Iris stared at the text, then typed, when can I meet her? Ruby had eyes too old for her face. She sat in the hospital playroom, leg in a cast arms wrapped around herself like armor. When Gabriel introduced Iris, Ruby didn't speak, just stared with those ancient eyes. Iris sat down on the floor across from her, didn't try to get close, didn't force anything. Hi, Ruby. I'm Iris. I build things, houses and rooms and spaces. Doctor Cross told me you might need a new room. Is that okay? Ruby didn't respond. Gabriel sat beside Iris and she felt the warmth of him there, felt how much he cared about this little girl who wouldn't speak. Iris pulled out a notebook. I'm going to draw some ideas. You don't have to talk. You can just point if you like something or shake your head if you don't. Does that work? Ruby watched her with those two old eyes, then nodded, once. For the next hour, Iris drew. She sketched windows with curtains that closed all the way. She drew shelves at Ruby's height so she could reach everything herself. She drew a bed in the corner so Ruby could see the door at all times. She drew a reading nook with pillows and soft lights. Ruby watched every line. When Iris drew a small tree house, just a platform with railings and a roof, something that could be built in a corner, Ruby's hand shot out. She pointed. You like that? Iris asked gently. Ruby nodded. Then so quietly, Iris almost missed it. I used to have one. The words broke something open. Gabriel leaned forward. Where, Ruby? But the girl had gone silent again, retreating into herself. Iris looked at Gabriel, saw the pain in his face, the desperate need to fix what was broken. She turned back to Ruby. If you want, I can build you a new one, not in the hospital, but wherever you go next, a place that's just yours. Would you like that? Ruby stared at her, then whispered, the nice lady. She had a tree in her yard. She let me sit there when Daddy yelled. Iris's heart stopped. What nice lady, Ruby? The old lady, gray hair, she made cookies. Ruby's voice was so small, but she died, and then there was no safe place anymore. Gabriel and Iris exchanged a look. Ruby, Iris said carefully, did this lady live in a big Victorian house with a porch and roses? Ruby nodded, the world tilted. That was my grandmother, Iris whispered. Gabriel's hand found hers, squeezed. She was nice, Ruby said. She said I could come back any time, but then she was gone. Iris felt tears on her face. Ruby, I'm fixing that house right now, and when it's done, you're going to have the best treehouse in Portland. I promise. For the first time since they'd met, Ruby smiled. Just a little, just enough. Outside the hospital, Iris couldn't stop shaking. That's impossible, she kept saying. The odds of that are impossible. Gabriel stood beside her in the parking garage, his hand still holding hers. Maybe it's not odds. Maybe it's something else. Like what fate, destiny, I don't believe in that. Neither did I. But Iris, what are the chances that we meet by accident? That I operate on your grandfather? That I treat a girl who knew your grandmother? That this little girl needs exactly what you need to build? Iris pulled her hand away, wrapped her arms around herself. It's too much. This is too much. Is it, or are you just scared? Of course I'm scared. She turned to face him. I'm terrified because this feels like something. And I don't do something. I do safe. I do alone. I do keeping everyone at a distance where they can't hurt me. Gabriel stepped closer. I'm scared too. I haven't let anyone in since Audrey died. I wake up every morning and choose work over life because it's easier. Because patients leave and I don't have to worry about losing them the way I lost her. Then why are we doing this? I don't know, but Iris, I think about you constantly. I look for your texts like they're oxygen. And when I saw you in that waiting room, I felt something I haven't felt in 3 years. I felt relief because you were there and I wasn't alone. The confession hung between them. Iris felt her walls cracking, felt the door she'd kept locked straining against its hinges. Gabriel, I don't know if I can do this. Do what? Let someone in. Let someone matter. Let someone close enough to destroy me again. He reached out slowly, gave her time to pull away. When she didn't, he cupped her face with one hand. His palm was warm, steady. Then don't let me in all at once. Let me in slowly. Let me prove I'm not Jonathan. Let me show you that not everyone leaves. What if you do? What if I don't? She closed her eyes, felt his hand on her face, felt the rain starting again outside, felt everything she'd carefully controlled slipping away. I'm a mess, she whispered. So am I. We're going to hurt each other. Probably. This is a terrible idea. The worst. She opened her eyes. He was so close. Close enough that she could see the gold flecks in his brown eyes. Close enough that she could count his breaths. Gabriel. Yes. I think I'm already letting you in. His smile was soft and sad and hopeful all at once. Good, because you're already in. He leaned forward, slowly, giving her every chance to stop this, to step back into safety. But Iris didn't step back. She stepped forward. Their lips met in the middle, soft, tentative, a question more than a statement. And for the first time in 5 years, Iris kissed someone and didn't think about the end. She just thought about now. They didn't see each other for 3 days after that. Not because they didn't want to, but because they both needed time to process what was happening. What they'd admitted to each other in a parking garage while rain fell around them. But on Saturday morning, Gabriel texted, I'm at the house, Iris. What house, Gabriel? Your grandmother's. I drove by to see it. I hope that's not weird. It should have been weird, but somehow it wasn't, Iris. I'll be there in 20 minutes. She found him standing in the overgrown front yard, hands in his pockets, staring up at the Victorian cottage like it held answers. You came, he said as she walked up. You're at my house. I wanted to see where Ruby's safe place was, where your grandmother made someone feel protected when no one else did. Iris looked at the house. It doesn't look very safe right now, but it could be with the right person fixing it. They stood side by side, shoulders almost touching. I've been thinking, Gabriel said, about what you said, about not knowing how to move forward without leaving her behind. And what if we do it together? What if I help you restore this place, not as a contractor, just as someone who's there, someone who understands what it means to try to honor the past while building something new? Iris looked at him. Why would you do that? Because Ruby needs it, because you need it, and because I need something to believe in that isn't just work and sleep and surviving. She felt tears threatening. Gabriel, let me be clear. I'm not proposing. I'm not asking for forever. I'm asking for now, for this project, for the chance to help you build something that matters. Iris thought about the plans she'd drawn 100 times, the space she'd imagined for Ruby, and other kids like her. The way her grandmother would have loved to see her home become a place of healing. Okay, she heard herself say. Okay, okay, let's build it together. Gabriel smiled, and this time when he took her hand, she didn't pull away. They spent the afternoon walking through the house talking about plans and possibilities. Gabriel asked questions about support beams and foundations. Iris showed him where the treehouse would go right in the backyard where her grandmother had planted an oak 50 years ago. It's perfect, Gabriel said. It will be. As they sat on the sagging porch steps shoulder to shoulder, Gabriel's phone rang. He looked at the screen and his expression tightened. I need to take this. Excuse me. He walked to the yard. Iris couldn't hear the conversation, but she saw the way his shoulders tensed, the way he ran a hand through his hair in frustration. When he came back, he looked shaken. Everything okay? She asked. That was Vivian, Audrey's sister. She's been calling more lately. About, she wants me to come to Boston, take a position at the hospital where Audrey wanted me to work. She says it's what Audrey would have wanted. He sat back down heavily. She's not wrong. Audrey died because she was going to support my career, and I never took the job. Iris's stomach dropped. Are you considering it? I don't know. Part of me thinks I owe it to Audrey's memory, but another part... What? Gabriel looked at her. Another part of me is here, in Portland, building something new. The weight of those words settled between them. Before Iris could respond, Gabriel's pager went off. He checked it and swore softly. I have to go. Emergency surgery. Of course, he stood, then bent down and kissed her forehead. Quick. Gentle. I'll call you tonight. He left and Iris sat alone on the porch of her grandmother's house, feeling like the ground had shifted beneath her. Boston. A job. Audrey's ghost pulling Gabriel toward a future that didn't include her. She pulled out her phone and texted Cleo, I think I'm in trouble. The response was immediate. Good trouble or bad trouble. Iris stared at the house, at the space that would become a sanctuary, at the life she was starting to imagine with someone in it. I don't know yet. That night, Gabriel didn't call. He texted at midnight. Surgery went long. Patient is stable. I'm sorry. Iris, don't be sorry. Get some sleep. But she lay awake anyway, staring at her ceiling, thinking about Boston and Audrey, and the way Gabriel had kissed her forehead like a promise. The next morning, she went back to the house alone. She brought her toolkit, her plans, her determination to stop waiting for permission to move forward. And she started working. She cleared the overgrown garden, pulled weeds, trimmed the roses that had gone wild. It was physical work that left her sweating and exhausted and feeling more alive than she had in years. By sunset, the front yard looked almost like she remembered it. Her phone buzzed. Gabriel. Can I come over? Iris looked at herself, dirt-covered, sweaty, probably a mess. Yes. He arrived 30 minutes later with takeout Chinese food and a bottle of wine. They sat on the porch steps, their spot now apparently, and ate straight from the containers. You started without me, Gabriel said, looking at the cleared garden. I couldn't wait anymore. That's good. Waiting is overrated. They ate in silence for a while. Then Gabriel set down his container. I need to tell you something. About Audrey. About the accident. Iris set down her food too. Okay? I told you we fought that morning. That she left angry. But I didn't tell you why we were fighting. He took a breath. Boston. She wanted me to take the position. I said no. I said Portland was our home. She said home was wherever we were together. I called her naive. She called me stubborn. And then she left. His voice cracked. 3 hours later, I got the call. Car accident on I-5. She died instantly. They said she was going south toward the airport, and I realized she was going to Boston. She was going to prove to me that she was serious, that she'd support my career even if I was too scared to take the risk. Tears were streaming down his face now. For 3 years, I thought she died angry at me, thought she died because of my stubbornness. And maybe she did. But she also died trying to love me better than I loved myself. Iris reached for him, pulled him close, let him cry against her shoulder while the sun set and the world grew dark around them. It's not your fault, she whispered. Gabriel. It's not your fault. I know that in my head, but my heart, your heart is still learning. That's okay, that's allowed. They sat there until the stars came out, until Gabriel's tears stopped and his breathing evened out. Thank you, he said finally. For what? For not running, for not telling me I'm too broken. We're both broken. Maybe that's why this works. He pulled back enough to look at her. Iris, I need you to know I'm not choosing Boston. I'm choosing here. I'm choosing this house and Ruby and you. Her heart jumped. You're sure? I've never been more sure of anything. She kissed him then, not gentle like before, but urgent, desperate, like she was trying to say everything she couldn't put into words. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Gabriel rested his forehead against hers. We should probably slow down, he murmured. Probably. Define our boundaries, figure out what this is. That would be smart. Neither of them moved. Or Iris said, we could just be honest, admit that we're falling for each other faster than is reasonable or smart or safe. Gabriel pulled back enough to see her face. Are you by us? Falling for you terrifyingly, yes. Good, because I'm falling for you too, and I have no idea what I'm doing, but I know I don't want to stop. They kissed again, and this time Iris felt something shift inside her. The door she'd kept locked didn't just open. It broke off its hinges completely. 2 weeks later, everything changed. Iris was at the house meeting with a contractor about the renovations when her phone rang. Unknown number. Iris Calloway. Yes. This is Jennifer Martinez from Child Protective Services. I'm calling about Ruby Hart. Dr. Cross listed you as a potential guardian resource. I need to discuss placement options with you urgently. Iris's world tilted. I'm sorry, what? Ruby's father has filed for custody. We need to present alternatives to the court. Doctor Cross mentioned you were designing a safe space for her. I'm calling to see if you'd be willing to serve as a foster placement. I don't, this is very sudden. I understand, but the hearing is in 3 days. If you're interested, we need to start the process immediately. Dr. Cross said you'd understand the urgency. Iris hung up in a daze, then called Gabriel immediately. Did you tell CPS I could take Ruby? She asked without preamble. A pause. I listed you as a potential resource. I should have asked you first. But Iris, her father, can't have her. He'll hurt her again. And you're the only person besides me she started to trust. Gabriel, I can't take a child. I'm single. I work constantly. I don't even have the house finished yet. I know. That's why I also put my name down. As a co-guardian. If we both apply together, we have a better chance. The words hung between them. You want us to co-foster Ruby? Iris said slowly. I want us to save her. However we can. Gabriel, we've known each other for 6 weeks. That's insane. I know, but is it wrong? She thought about Ruby's eyes. About the way the girl had smiled when Iris promised her a treehouse. About her grandmother who'd given Ruby refuge when no one else would. No, she whispered. It's not wrong. Then let's do it. Let's save her together. Iris looked at the house around her, at the space that was becoming a home, at the life she was building with someone she'd never planned to meet. Okay, she said. Okay, let's save her. And just like that, everything they'd been carefully building became real, terrifyingly, beautifully real. The courthouse smelled like old wood and anxiety. Rish sat in the hallway outside the family court, her hands clasped so tight her knuckles had gone white. Gabriel sat beside her close enough that their shoulders touched. Neither had spoken in 20 minutes. Ruby was inside with the social worker. Her father was inside too, wearing a suit that probably cost more than Iris made in a month, looking every bit the reformed man he claimed to be. He's going to win, Iris whispered. He has a lawyer. He has family court on his side. We're just 2 people who met 2 months ago playing house. Gabriel took her hand. We're 2 people who love that little girl, who want to give her safety. That has to count for something. Does it? Before he could answer, the courtroom doors opened. Jennifer Martinez, the social worker, stepped out. Her face was carefully neutral. The judge wants to speak with you both. They stood together, walked together, sat together at a table while Ruby's father sat across the aisle with his lawyer looking confident and clean and absolutely nothing like the man who'd put his daughter in the hospital. Judge Catherine Morrison was in her 60s with gray hair pulled back and eyes that had seen too much. She looked at the file in front of her, then at Ruby's father, then at Gabriel and Iris. "This is an unusual case," she said. "Mr. Hart, you're petitioning for custody of your daughter after a year of supervised visitation and mandated therapy. Dr. Cross and Ms. Calloway, you're petitioning to serve as foster guardians despite having known each other for less than 3 months." Ruby's father's lawyer stood. "Your Honor, Mr. Hart has completed all court-mandated requirements. He's maintained steady employment, attended anger management, and demonstrated consistent improvement. His daughter belongs with her father." Judge Morrison held up a hand. "I've read the reports, Mr. Patterson. Sit down." She turned to Gabriel and Iris. "Dr. Cross, Ms. Calloway, why should I grant you guardianship over Ruby's biological father?" Gabriel stood. Iris saw his hands trembling slightly. "Your Honor, I've been Ruby's surgeon and physician for 6 months. In that time, I've watched her refuse to speak, refuse to eat, refuse to trust anyone. She has night terrors. She flinches when men come near her. She's 8 years old and she's already learned that the people who should protect her are the ones who hurt her most." "And you believe you can provide better?" the judge asked. "I believe I can provide safety. I believe Ms. Calloway and I can give her a home where she doesn't have to be afraid." The judge looked at Iris. "Ms. Calloway, you're an architect. You have no children, no experience with foster care. Why are you here?" Iris stood on shaking legs. "Because my grandmother knew Ruby. Before she died, my grandmother gave Ruby refuge when she was scared. And now I'm restoring my grandmother's house into a space for children who need safety. Ruby isn't just a case to me, Your Honor. She's the reason I'm finally finishing what my grandmother started." Judge Morrison studied them both. Then she said, "I'm going to do something unusual. I'm going to bring Ruby in here. I want to hear from her." Ruby's father's lawyer objected immediately. "Your Honor, the child is 8 years old. She's been coached." "Mr. Patterson, I've been a family court judge for 27 years. I know when a child has been coached. Bailiff, please bring in Ruby Hart." The minutes that followed felt like hours. Then the door opened and Ruby walked in. She looked so small, so fragile. Her leg was still in a walking cast and she held Jennifer's hand like a lifeline. When she saw her father, she stopped moving entirely. Jennifer guided her to the witness stand. The judge's face softened in a way that made Iris think maybe, just maybe, there was hope. "Ruby," Judge Morrison said gently, "I'm Judge Morrison. I know this is scary, but I need to ask you some questions. Is that okay?" Ruby nodded, not looking at her father. "Do you know why you're here today?" Another nod. "Ruby, can you use your words? I need to hear you say it." Ruby's voice was barely a whisper. "Because Daddy wants me back." "And how do you feel about that?" Silence. Ruby's eyes filled with tears. Judge Morrison leaned forward. "Ruby, I need you to be honest with me. Do you want to live with your father?" Ruby shook her head. "Why not?" "Because he hurts me." The words came out broken. "Because he says sorry, but then he does it again. Because I'm scared all the time." Ruby's father stood face red. "That's not, she doesn't understand." "Mr. Hart, sit down or I'll hold you in contempt." The judge's voice was steel. She turned back to Ruby. "Where do you want to live, sweetie?" Ruby looked across the courtroom. Found Gabriel, Aito, then Iris. "With them," she whispered. "With Dr. Gabriel and Miss Iris." "Why better?" "Because they make me feel safe. Because Miss Iris is building me a tree house like the nice lady used to have. Because Dr. Gabriel makes my legs stop hurting. Because," her voice broke, "because they love each other and they love me too." The courtroom went silent. Iris felt tears streaming down her face. Felt Gabriel's hand find hers again. Felt the weight of what Ruby had just said. Judge Morrison removed her glasses, wiped them slowly, put them back on. "I've made my decision." They won. Temporary guardianship granted to Gabriel Cross and Iris Calloway, pending a 6-month review. Ruby's father was denied custody, though he could petition again in a year, with proof of sustained rehabilitation. Outside the courthouse, Ruby threw her arms around Iris's waist and sobbed. Gabriel knelt beside them both, and they held each other while people streamed past, while the city moved around them, while everything changed. "We did it," Iris whispered. "We did," Gabriel said. "We actually did it." Ruby pulled back, wiping her face. "Can we go see the treehouse?" They both laughed through tears. "Yes," Iris said. "Yes, we can go see the treehouse." They drove to the Victorian cottage in Gabriel's car, Ruby in the back seat, chattering about what color she wanted her room to be, what she wanted in her treehouse, whether they could get a dome. The anxiety of the past weeks seemed to melt off her with each mile. At the house, Gabriel carried Ruby to the backyard where the oak tree stood. The contractor had started the treehouse the week before, a platform 8 feet off the ground, with railings and a roof and a ladder Ruby could climb safely. "It's perfect," Ruby breathed. "Not yet," Iris said, "but it will be. We all get to build it together." Ruby looked up at her. "All of us. All of us." They spent the afternoon there. Gabriel climbed up to check the structure's stability, while Ruby directed him where things should go. Iris took measurements and made notes, planning the finishing touches. And for a few hours, they were just a family doing family things. Normal, real, theirs. But as the sun started to set and Ruby fell asleep on a pile of lumber, Gabriel's phone rang. He looked at the screen and his expression tightened. "Vivian," he walked away to take it. Iris watched him pace, watched his free hand run through his hair, watched the tension return to his shoulders. When he came back, he looked shaken. "What is it?" Iris asked quietly. "She's here in Portland. She wants to meet tomorrow." "Why?" "She says she has something of Audrey's, something I need to see." Iris's stomach twisted, but she nodded. "Okay, then we'll meet her." "Iris, no, we're in this together. Whatever this is, we face it together." He pulled her close, kissed her temple. "I don't deserve you." "Yes, you do. You just don't believe it yet." They met Vivian at a coffee shop in the Pearl District. She looked like Audrey. Same dark hair, same sharp cheekbones, same eyes that held too much sadness. She was in her early 40s, dressed in business attire, and she greeted Gabriel with a hug that lasted too long. "Thank you for meeting me," she said. Then she looked at Iris. "You must be Iris. Gabriel's told me about you. Has he mentioned you were helping with a patient, that you were," she paused as if choosing words carefully, "important to him." They sat, ordered coffee no one really wanted. The silence was heavy with things unsaid. Finally, Vivian pulled an envelope from her bag. Thick, cream-colored, addressed to Gabriel in handwriting that made him go pale. "I found this 3 weeks ago," Vivian said, "in Mom's attic. Audrey wrote it the morning of the accident. It was in her car. The police gave us back her belongings 2 years ago, but this was stuck in the glove compartment. We didn't find it until Mom was cleaning out storage." Gabriel stared at the envelope like it might explode. "Vivian, you need to read it. You've carried guilt for 3 years, Gabriel. You deserve to know the truth." "What truth?" "Just read it, please." With shaking hands, Gabriel opened the envelope, pulled out pages covered in Audrey's neat handwriting. Iris watched his eyes move across the words, watched his face transform confusion, then pain, then something that might have been relief or devastation, or both. When he finished, he couldn't speak. Vivian turned to Iris. Audrey was on her way to the airport. She'd bought a ticket to Boston. She'd arranged an apartment. She was going to surprise Gabriel by proving she'd support his career move even though he'd said no. "Why are you telling me this?" Iris asked quietly. "Because Gabriel has been punishing himself for 3 years thinking Audrey died because of him. But she didn't die angry. She died loving him." Vivian looked at Gabriel. "She died trying to give you the future you were too scared to take." Gabriel's hands were trembling. The letter fluttered in his grip. Vivian reached into her bag again, pulled out another envelope. "The hospital in Boston still wants you. They've held the position open. They're willing to wait. And Gabriel, I think you should go. I think you should finish what Audrey started. I think you owe it to her memory." The words landed like stones. Iris felt her world tilting, felt the future she'd been building start to crack at the edges. When would he need to decide, she heard herself ask. They need an answer in 2 weeks. Gabriel finally looked up. His eyes were red. "Vivian, I can't. There are people here. Commitments." "You mean Iris?" Vivian looked at her. "I'm not trying to destroy anything. But you've known each other for what, 2 months? Audrey and Gabriel were together for 7 years. That doesn't just disappear because someone new is in the picture. That's not fair, Iris said. Maybe not, but it's true. Vivian stood. Read the letter again, Gabriel. Really read it. And then decide if you're honoring Audrey's memory or running from it. She left. Gabriel and Iris sat in silence. Finally, Iris said, "Let me read it." He handed her the pages. She read Audrey's words full of love and hope and determination. Read how Audrey had been scared but excited. How she believed in Gabriel more than he believed in himself. How she was going to Boston to prove that home wasn't a place but a person. "I'm going to support you through this no matter how scary it is, because I love you more than I fear change. And when you're ready to follow, I'll be waiting. We're going to build something beautiful together. I promise you." The last line broke Iris's heart. "She loved you so much," Iris whispered. "I know. And now you're wondering if you should go, if you should finish what she started." Gabriel looked at her. "Iris, it's okay, you can say it. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Part of me thinks Vivian's right, that I owe it to Audrey. But another part of me doesn't want to leave. Doesn't want to leave Ruby. Doesn't want to leave you." Iris felt tears on her face. "Gabriel, I can't tell you what to do. But I can tell you this, if you stay because of me, you'll resent me eventually. And if you go because of guilt, you'll never forgive yourself. You have to choose what you want. Not what Audrey wanted, not what Vivian wants, not what I want, what you want. What if I don't know? Then figure it out. But don't drag me through the process of watching you decide if I'm worth staying for." She stood. Gabriel reached for her hand. "Iris, please. I need some time. You need some time. Let's take a few days and think about what we really want." "I don't want to lose you." "Then don't choose Boston." She left him there with Audrey's letter and the weight of impossible choices. 3 days passed. Iris threw herself into the house. She worked 16-hour days painting walls, installing fixtures, building the treehouse with her own hands. She didn't sleep, barely ate, just worked until her body gave out. Cleo came by on the second day. "You look terrible," her sister said, not unkindly. "I'm fine." "You're destroying yourself. What happened?" Iris told her everything. About Vivian, about the letter, about Boston, about how Gabriel had a choice and she'd walked away before he could make it. Cleo sat on the floor of what would be Ruby's room. "Do you love him?" "It's too soon to love him." "That's not an answer." Iris set down her paintbrush. "Yes, I love him. I love him so much it terrifies me. And that's why I can't be the reason he stays. Because if he stays for me and regrets it, I'll spend the rest of my life wondering if I was worth it." "Iris, you are worth it. You're worth staying for. You're worth building a life with." "How do you know?" "Because I'm your sister. And I've watched you survive the worst thing that ever happened to you. I've watched you build walls so high you couldn't see the sky. And I've watched Gabriel start tearing those walls down. You're different with him. You're alive. What if he leaves? What if he doesn't? What if he chooses you and it's the best decision he ever makes?" Iris wanted to believe it, but 5 years of mistrust didn't disappear in 2 months. That night, her doorbell rang. She opened it to find Gabriel standing there in the rain, looking like he hadn't slept either. "Can I come in?" he asked. She stepped aside. They sat on her couch, her cat between them like a buffer. For a long time, neither spoke. Finally, Gabriel said, "I called Boston today." Iris's heart stopped. And, I turned them down." She couldn't breathe. "Why, Biden?" "Because Audrey was right. Home isn't a place. It's a person. And I've been so focused on honoring her memory that I forgot to honor her wish that I be happy, that I build something beautiful." He turned to look at her. "I'm happy here. With Ruby, with this house, with you. And I don't want to leave that behind for a ghost." Tears streamed down Iris's face. "Are you sure?" "I've never been more sure of anything." He took her hand. "Iris, I know it's fast. I know we barely know each other. But I also know that when I think about my future, you're in it. You and Ruby in that ridiculous Victorian cottage. That's my future, not Boston." She couldn't speak. could only pull him close and hold on while everything she'd been afraid of dissolved into relief. "I love you," Gabriel whispered against her hair. "I know it's too soon. I know it's crazy, but I love you." Iris pulled back enough to see his face. "I love you too. And you're right, it's too soon. It's completely insane. But I don't care." They kissed, and this time there was no hesitation, no fear, just two people choosing each other despite impossible odds. 1 week later, Gabriel moved into the Victorian cottage. It wasn't finished. Half the room still needed work. The kitchen was functional but dated, but it had Ruby's room painted purple with glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling. It had the treehouse in the backyard, and it had space for all of them to figure out what family meant. Ruby adjusted faster than either of them expected. She started speaking more, smiling more. She enrolled in school and made friends. She still had nightmares sometimes, but Gabriel or Iris would sit with her until she fell back asleep. Cleo came by twice a week to photograph their progress, both on the house and as a family. She was getting married in 2 months, and Iris was her maid of honor. For the first time in 5 years, Iris was looking forward to a wedding. One night, 3 weeks after Gabriel moved in, Iris was going through old boxes in her bedroom. Gabriel was putting Ruby to bed. The house was quiet except for his voice reading a bedtime story down the hall. In the bottom of a box, she found it. The ring. The engagement ring from Jonathan. The one her grandmother had given her. The one she'd kept all these years, not because she loved him, but because it was the last piece of her grandmother she had left. She held it in her palm, feeling its weight, feeling the memories attached to it, both good and bad. Gabriel appeared in the doorway. "Ruby's asleep. What are you?" He stopped, saw the ring. His expression closed. "Is that my engagement ring from before?" He was quiet. Then, "Why do you still have it?" "Because it was my grandmother's. Because she gave it to Jonathan to give to me, and after I called off the wedding, he just left it on my kitchen counter like it meant nothing. But it meant everything to me. It was the last thing I had of hers." Gabriel sat beside her on the floor. "Do you still love him?" "Jonathan, God, no. I don't think I ever really did. I think I loved the idea of forever, of not being alone." She looked at the ring. "But keeping this, it's been keeping me stuck. Hasn't it?" "Only you can answer that." Iris thought about her grandmother, about what she would say if she were here, about the conversation they'd had when she was 16 and her first boyfriend had broken her heart. The heart is the house, darling. And sometimes we keep rooms locked because we're afraid of what's inside. But you can't live in a house where half the rooms are locked. Eventually you suffocate. She stood, walked to the window, opened it. "What are you doing?" Gabriel asked. "Unlocking a room." She looked at the ring one last time. Then she threw it as hard as she could into the night, watched it disappear into the darkness. When she turned around, Gabriel was standing, watching her with something like awe. "Are you okay?" he asked. "I'm free," she laughed. "I'm finally free." He crossed the room, pulled her close. "Good, because I have something for you." "Gabriel, it's not what you think. Just wait here." He disappeared into the hall, came back with a small box, opened it. Inside was a ring, not an engagement ring, a simple silver band with words engraved inside, "Home is where love rebuilds." "I'm not proposing," Gabriel said quickly. "I know it's too soon. I know we're still figuring this out. But Iris, I wanted you to have something that means us, not your past, not mine, just us." She took the ring, slipped it on her right hand. It fit perfectly. "How did you know my size?" "Cleo helped. She's surprisingly devious." Iris laughed through tears. "I love it. I love you. I love you too." They stood in the bedroom of the house Iris was rebuilding, holding each other, while the city breathed around them, while Ruby slept safely down the hall, while everything they'd been became everything they were becoming. 6 months later. The house was finished. The Victorian cottage had been transformed into the architect's garden, a community space for foster children and their families. There were therapy rooms and play spaces and a commercial kitchen where kids could learn to cook. And in the backyard, Ruby's treehouse stood as a testament to safety and hope. The grand opening was scheduled for a Saturday in June. 200 people showed up. social workers and foster families, and community leaders. Even Judge Morrison came taking a tour with Ruby as her guide. But before the public opening, there was a private ceremony. Just family. Iris stood in what had been her grandmother's living room wearing a simple white dress, not a wedding gown, just a dress that made her feel like herself. Her hair was down, flowers woven through it by Cleo, who stood beside her, crying happy tears. Gabriel stood across from her in a navy suit, Ruby beside him in a purple dress holding a basket of petals. Thea was there, Iris's parents, Gabriel's parents who'd flown in from Seattle. Vivian had come too, and she smiled at Gabriel with something like peace. The officiant was a friend of Cleo's who'd known their grandmother. She kept the ceremony short and simple. Marriage is a house you build together, she said, room by room, day by day. And these two have already started building. They've built a home for a little girl who needed one. They've built a space for healing. They've built a future on the foundation of their pain, and now they're making it official. Gabriel and Iris had written their own vows. Gabriel went first. Iris, 3 months ago, I was a man who'd forgotten how to live. I was going through motions, surviving but not thriving. And then I met you, and you reminded me that home isn't where you've been. It's where you're going. You're my home. You're my future. And I promise to keep building that future with you one day at a time. Iris couldn't stop crying. Gabriel, 5 years ago, I decided safety meant being alone. That trust was a luxury I couldn't afford. And then you showed up, and you were just as broken as me, just as scared. And somehow that made it okay to try again. You taught me that being broken doesn't mean being worthless. It means being human. And I promise to keep being human with you, to keep choosing you, to keep building this impossible, beautiful life. They exchanged rings, simple gold bands that matched the silver one Gabriel had given her months before. When the officiant pronounced them married, Ruby cheered so loud everyone laughed. Gabriel kissed Iris, not for show, just because he could, just because she was his and he was hers, and they'd chosen each other despite every reason not to. The reception was in the backyard, string lights hung from trees, tables covered in white cloth, food catered by the restaurant where they'd had their first dinner, the one where they'd admitted to being disasters. Cleo gave a speech that made everyone cry. Theo gave a speech that made everyone laugh. Ruby gave a speech that was mostly, I love Miss Iris and Dr. Gabriel in my treehouse, but it was perfect. As the sun set and the party continued, Gabriel pulled Iris away to the treehouse. They climbed up together, sitting on the platform with their feet dangling, watching their friends and family below. We did it, Gabriel said. We really did. Are you happy? Iris looked at him, at this man who'd been a stranger 4 months ago, who was now her husband, her partner, her home. I'm terrified, she admitted. I'm scared we move too fast. I'm scared it'll fall apart. I'm scared I'll wake up and this will be a dream. Me too, they smiled at each other. But you know what, Iris continued, I'm also happier than I've ever been, and I think that's what matters. Not the fear, but what we do with it. Gabriel kissed her softly. What do we do with it? We build anyway. We love anyway. We choose each other anyway. Deal. Below them, Ruby was dancing with Cleo. Theo was talking to Iris's parents. The house glowed with warm light, every window bright with life and possibility. This was home. Not perfect, not without scars, but theirs, built on broken foundations, rebuilt with love. Gabriel wrapped his arm around Iris, and they sat there as stars appeared overhead, as music drifted up from below, as everything they'd survived became everything they'd built. Thank you, Gabriel whispered. For what? For saying yes to a blind date you didn't want, for taking a chance on a broken man and a scared little girl, for building this with me. Iris leaned her head on his shoulder. Thank you for showing up, for staying, for choosing this life instead of running from it. They sat in comfortable silence. Then Iris said, You know what's funny? What? We were never supposed to meet that night. The blind date was a mistake. We were matched with other people, and somehow through all the chaos and confusion we ended up at the same table. You think it was fate? I think it was luck, or chance, or maybe just two broken people being in the right place at the right time. She looked at him. But whatever it was, I'm grateful. Me too, Ruby's voice called up from below. Come dance, you're missing the fun part. They climbed down to buy hand in hand back to the party, back to the people they loved, back to the life they'd built from ruins. And as they danced under string lights in the garden where Iris's grandmother had once grown roses, where Ruby had once found refuge, where broken things were being made whole, Iris realized something. The door she'd kept locked for 5 years hadn't just opened. It had become a home. And standing in that doorway was Gabriel and Ruby, in a future she'd never dared to imagine. Not perfect, but real, and hers. 2 years later, the architect's garden had served 63 children in its first 2 years. Ruby, now 10, volunteered there every weekend, showing new kids the treehouse, telling them they were safe now. Gabriel still worked at the hospital, but he'd cut back to 50 hours a week, made time for family dinners, for Ruby's soccer games, for date nights with Iris where they went to ridiculous restaurants and laughed about how terrible their first date had been. Iris had opened her own firm designing spaces specifically for foster care facilities. Her grandmother's house had become the model. Requests came from all over Oregon. Cleo had a daughter now, a little girl named Eleanor after their grandmother. Ruby was convinced she was the best big cousin in the world. Vivian came to visit twice a year. She'd let go of the anger, learned to see that Gabriel's happiness wasn't a betrayal of Audrey, but a fulfillment of what Audrey had wanted for him to live fully. And on quiet nights when Ruby was asleep and the house was still, Gabriel and Iris would sit on the porch steps, their spot, and watch the rain fall. Sometimes they talked, sometimes they didn't, but they were always together. Two people who'd been broken, who'd found each other by accident, who'd chosen each other on purpose, and who'd built a home where love could rebuild anything, even themselves. The end.